Hey, hello there, and welcome to Talking with Tony, a brand new episode for you here on YouTube tonight. And so pleased to welcome, he's certainly in the Christmas spirit. The festivities in his hometown, LaGrange, will be tomorrow night, LaGrange, Georgia, with the big Christmas parade. But for tonight, we say hello to Danny Art from his residence in LaGrange, and we're loving the tree in the background there, Danny.
Hello, everyone. Jake, Tony, nice to see you tonight. Everybody in the audience, definitely trying to get the Christmas spirit going. I usually don't have much Christmas spirit during this month because of my job, but two things you can always count on in December, right? My Christmas tree goes up. I'm in pretty good mood, and Georgia's playing in the SEC championship. That's what I'm talking about, man. So,
That's a moment for Donnie Laney too, right there.
yeah,
And I want to say we know that Donnie trolls the show, so he'll be watching. We got to, and I do want to make a correction on behalf of Donnie's. He doesn't necessarily think Ohio State would go 500 if they were playing in the SEC. It's more like they would certainly lose 3 games, is what he said. But he's
that's
clearly
for the
not a fan of
underdogs.
he's clearly not a fan of the Silver Bullets, Danny.
Yeah, they might lose 3 games. I mean,
Well, they're going to lose 3 games this year unless they win it
yeah, well,
all.
I mean,
Because
I mean, a lot of people are losing 3 games in the SEC, so I don't know why that's such a knock.
well, I think because they
I
did
hope
have.
Georgia doesn't, but
I tell you, I've done all that I can do not to jump off a bridge since Saturday when they lost to Michigan, and it's becoming. I have defended Brian Day so many times in the past, and it's becoming more and more difficult, as you can quite imagine. I mean, it's very frustrating, and there's no way Michigan had a better team than Ohio State, but there were a lot of factors in that game Saturday. One, in the fourth quarter, we just couldn't, in the second half, really, we couldn't get our defense off the field, even though they're exceptional, because Michigan was just nickel and diming us to death with 3, 5, 6 yard gains. You have a kid that's 14 for 14 field goals under 40 yards all year, and he misses two in one contest, and that was brutal. And we didn't get people like Travion Henderson enough touches with the offense. And I think Chip Kelly's done a great job this year as the play caller, but not a good job on Saturday when we needed him the most, against Michigan. So credit to the Wolverines. Like I said on my Facebook post, I mean, they deserve the credit for coming in there and winning the game. If Ohio State has a weakness, you and I have talked about this in the past, it's the offensive line. It's the ability to pass protect. And if Michigan has a strength, it is their pass rush. And Ohio State losing the best center in the country, the fifth-year senior, the transfer from Alabama, Seth McLaughlin, that has killed Ohio State. Just today, I kind of had that look of chagrin on my face when I saw Simmons, who is fabulous offensive lineman, is foregoing it might have been Donovan Jackson. It was either Josh Simmons for going there last year. They've been hurt also, but he's
yeah,
going to be a senior next year. But no, he's just going to go ahead and say he's out injured. He's just said like I'm giving up my eligibility now, and that's like when he hadn't been with us since I guess we lost him in the Oregon game. That's
yeah.
like that's hard to think. Like when he goes like, oh, I'm already giving up my year, and then Ohio State offered the cornerback, the number one cornerback in the country. It was rumored if he flipped, he was going to flip to Auburn. Well, he ended up flipping to Oregon. So both of my schools lost out on that one.
Yeah, I tell you, man, that was a bad weekend for you. I know. We sort of talked about it. I told you, I think Kelly got in his mind that he's closed out a few games running the ball. He had some kind of mental idea that he was going to be able to run the ball. And the line has done okay running it. You close out a couple of games that way, right? But man, if they could not get it going, and he was just going to stick to it, and then it just was too many obvious passing situations. And to your point, Michigan's one strength is the pass rush, and it killed you, man.
Yeah, Gant and James Graham, they're Mason Graham. They are Kenneth Gant, Mason Graham. They're exceptional on that defense line for Michigan and
Yeah,
contributors and yeah, they were problematic for the Buckeyes. And the interception in the second quarter, I believe it was either first or second quarter, but you throw it at the 9, they run it back to the 2. It was eerily similar to last year in the game that I went to in Ann Arbor, where Kyle threw an interception when basically Will Johnson, who's the tremendous All-American cornerback for Michigan, just jumped the route and got in front of Harrison Jr. and intercepted and used that short field to go up 7-0. And such
yeah,
was the case again Saturday. Well, we were up 3-0, but fell behind 7-3. But you know, It is what it is. Look, we have a couple of things to discuss outside of football today. Certainly want to talk golf with you. I'm excited that Sunday night, for some people, Monday morning, my new book, Fall and Recover, the sequel to 6 Weeks This Summer, it launched. It's off to a nice start selling at Amazon. I've reached a deal with Amazon for the first 4 months to sell exclusively there before it gets placed in bookstores. It's off to a good start. It's not off to the great start 6 weeks this summer that got off to, and it was charting as the number three best new release yesterday, which is fine. But
Yeah.
6 weeks this summer did go number one on Amazon, so it's got a lot of work to do there. And I was over dinner, was just talking to one of the two people that were with us as a writer. He just thought like Christmas is a hard time to release a book, and I agree with that from the standpoint. I was thinking like maybe people will be buying this for Christmas presents, but also there are so many Christmas books out for sale right now. A lot of children's books that people want to buy, for them and all.
Yeah.
So it's going to be hard to grab that top spot, but we'll see. We'll know in the next 7 to 10 days. You were kind of part of that excitement for 6 weeks this summer when it
Mhm.
went number one because you were with me, and I got to tell you that you had a small part in 6 weeks of summer, as mentioned as a Toronto Blue Jays catcher. Your part is a little bigger in part two because you have signed. I don't want to give it away for people who are going to read Fall and Recover, but you signed with the same team that Miles has signed. So you have some speaking lines in Fall and Recover. And in part three, which will be out next summer, you're going to be a main character, like one of the top five characters. So you're age 41 in the book, and this is you say is your last time around the sun in baseball. So you want that playoff run. You want that
Yeah.
chance to win a World Series, and you were Brandon Veazey's catcher last year with the Blue Jays. Well, he's also signed with the team that you're going to be playing for, so you will still have that job plus more games too. So you're going to be and the third book is called Summer and something, and I can't say what the last word is because they'll need to give away like where he signs, but
Yeah.
you're going to have a more notable role.
That's good, man. I enjoyed the first one, seeing it. I'm looking forward. I'll get my order in tonight for the Fall and Recover. And man, I'm excited about being the lead character in the last one.
Your wife, the beautiful former Jana Thomas, will she read Fall and Recover?
As an English teacher, you would think she would, but I don't know. I'd probably say not. She's not into sports, man. I mean, as a matter of fact, like I said, I was cooking breakfast in here. I could got home from dinner. I mean, got home from work, been up since 3:30, and I come in and cook, which not knocking her out. She's a great cook. I was cooking breakfast. I had the TV on in the kitchen. And I put it on Sports Center, and Bobby V's doing his speech. They're replaying the ESPY speech because it's Cancer Awareness Week. She comes walking in. What is this crap? You think I'm watching Sports Center? You're out of your mind. I'm like, it's
Valvano's giving his
I think
wonderful
it's one
speech.
of the best speeches of all time. Especially as you get older in age, it hits a little harder. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when we
Yeah,
did that when we were
absolutely.
younger, but I mean, she's like, I'm not watching this crap. Put it on Game Show Network or something. So probably not, Anthony, or
Mm.
Tony with the sports
Well,
thing. You're not going to get her to do it, man.
that's fine. Although I will say that the couple that I had dinner with tonight, they aren't crazy about the vocabulary of Miles. And, former valedictorian at Noonan High, and he was a spelling bee champion, and he was third in the script spelling bee twice. Most people love that little side. They are not fans of it. Most people say that they love it, even though they don't know a lot of the words, or sometimes they may have to like look it up on the cell phone and all. But I told him like I'm going to have to reach. I have a quote from basically from Felix the cat, who was a animated guy a little bit before our time, and he always, when he was up against the wall, would reach into his bag of tricks. I'm gonna have to reach into my bag of tricks and find some more words because I've used about 85% of the ones that I know so far in these first two books. So I'm going to be up against it in the next two books to keep up his vocabulary. But I think that's kind of a little unique thing that I like about him.
Maybe that could be Janice's contribution. She could send you some vocabulary words.
Well, Ginger Woodruff is somebody who I believe teaches literature or English or something, and I respect
Yeah.
those were my heroes. Like in high school, were my teachers that were those. Those are the influences on me. And I don't believe she's read 6 weeks this summer yet, which is just crazy to me because her son's I think, a legitimate baseball
Yeah, he's
player.
a baseball player.
Yeah, so I'm calling out, Ginger Woodruff on this on this episode of Talking with Tony. I don't know if Ginger will see it, but
She
yeah.
retires this year, though. As a matter of fact, Ginger's retiring this year. I'll tell you.
Well, congratulations to her. I mean, that's
Mhm.
insane to think about. I mean, are we really that old to know
Yeah.
people who are retiring from teaching? But I would just say this, and for a lot of people watching the show will not know who we're talking about, but my heroes were the Miss Kane and Miss Stevens at the time, I believe, Griffin now, Miss Wright at the time, who was Miss Sargent, who's I'm not sure what her name is. Those ladies, those were my heroes, though, and I got to throw Coach Clark in there too, who meant so much to me as well. But they were great influences on me, and that's one of the reasons that I love reading so much, and now I enjoy writing as well.
Yeah, I always enjoyed those classes as well. I mean, I had Lane Dutter was my favorite English teacher.
Hmm.
And I like Miss Fowler. She was an eccentric little thing, but she was okay. Miss Stevens was good. But yeah, I think I know we met in coach, or we know we met in PE, but we had Coach Clark in ninth grade as well
Hmm.
in our psychology class. So,
Danny, I got to brag on all those teachers right now too. And of course, Talking with Tony's not a political show. And the first 5, 6 chapters of Fall and Recover is a pretty political book because it starts the night before the Harris Trump election. Everybody that knows me knows I'm pretty far right. Just Christian conservative. One of those evangelical Christians that's very conservative. And as I got older, I realized, and I'm Facebook friends with these people that are big influences on me. What I loved about them is they did not indoctrinate us when we were that age with their politics, because I found out that most of those people that I hold so dear as far as being great influences on me do not see the world like I see the world. But yet they never pushed their agenda on us. And I really appreciate that. And I think we've mentioned it one other time before. Maybe that's not as big of a thing in high school as it is certainly in college, but it reaches some schools. And I have a lot of respect for my teachers now as I look back for not pushing their policies, their beliefs on us.
yeah, I mean, they just taught us the class you were in. That's what you went in there for. The subject you're in, you paid attention. You didn't really. I don't even remember talking politics when we went. Clark Johnson had a class. I think it was called social events or something like that. It was one of my senior electives, like just trying to get through high school. And that was political, of course, right? I mean, because that's what the class was about. But besides that, and it happened to be the same, that was an election year in '88. So it was my junior year, '88. And, we taught a lot of politics in that class, but no other one. The rest
Mm.
of it was just math, calculus and English. So,
Let's
but
transfer
I
to.
think, Janice does a great job as a public school teacher. She's down to business. She teaches those kids great. And, I think she makes a great impact on those kids. And it's
Mm.
pretty impressive. I
Yeah,
mean, I get letters, I see the letters they give her and the notes they give her. You can tell she has a big impact on them in a
sounds
positive
like
way.
she's doing exactly what God called her to do then, like making a difference in those kids' lives and teaching in that manner. I love the fact that epistolography is the practice of writing letters and sending cards and stuff, and a lot of that is lost now, like the handwritten notes and all. It's just not there. It's still there with me. I tried to, follow scripture in Thessalonians, and I still try to lift people up, but I do believe I'm a minority. So I love hearing the fact that kids have like reached out to her by way of the pen, and I love hearing that actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I know when we got back together and sort of doing our courtship right before we got married, she was in Virginia still finishing her teaching. What do you call it? Student teaching.
Sure.
And I've always been a writer. My mom was a writer. She was English. And I wrote a letter to her. And I mean, when I say a letter, 3 pages minimum a day and mailed it. That's how smitten I was and trying to get her to move back to Georgia. Worked out great for me. It's been a good 30 years. We got our 30th anniversary coming up
Yeah, it has.
December 30th, man.
My dad's birthday. How about that? That's
Yeah.
pretty awesome. Um, yeah, that's I like hearing that actually. Dad would have turned 80 this year. So we happy early anniversary to you guys. Before we talk football, let's talk the PGA Tour. the Hero Golf Tournament and all. Tiger Woods not playing in it, but there are some very big names who are. Scotty Scheffler seems to be the favorite. Your thoughts on the event?
Yeah, I think it's a great event. I wish I was in the Bahamas right now, as I'm sure everybody else does. But it will be a field without Tiger. He's recovering from back surgery, but you really have the best player in the world, no doubt, with Scotty Scheffler playing, and he would be the odds-on favorite. Of course, I think any tournament they played or anywhere they played it, no matter how big the field is, he would be the odds-on favorite. But now you got the field pared down to 20 players, all of which are good players. But I think if you're going to place a bet on that tournament, Scotty Scheffler has definitely got to get some of your money. If I was going to go, a mid-range long shot, I do like the way Justin Thomas ended the year last year. I thought he was playing exceptionally well. He's very tight with Tiger, so him being down here at this tournament, I think is going to be a good deal for him, and I think he'll be competitive. I think he went out at like plus 1,200.
What about Sung J M, Danny?
Sun J M's a great player. He's always in the mix, but I don't know. If I wouldn't bet him as what he is plus 1,400, so he's about probably fifth from the top out of the 20 in the favorites. But if I had to go with a long shot, I'd say Aaron Ray. It's plus 300. He won his first tournament.
Yeah. He
won the Wyndham
for several, and then he
He won the Wyndham. He finished in the top 10 like 5 times. And from what I read about it, he's in pretty good form. He's very accurate off the tee, hitting greens in regulation, which that's where it's at, man. I mean, 73% greens in regulation is tough. And
when a golfer like Max Homa plays the Ned Bank this weekend, and there's a couple other Americans doing the same, are they getting some appearance fee money to do that, not to play in the Hero Tournament? Because he certainly would have qualified for that field, right?
he would have been in the field, but I think he is getting paid for that. Yeah, he gets paid to make the other appearance, And I don't know if it is paid just for that tournament, but I think there's some kind of little sliding scale from what I read that the number of appearances you get more money when you're doing that. So, of course, and again, you're getting a little weaker field and play. You also get the payday if you win the thing. So
that's true.
I was trying to figure out. Maybe I didn't read much about it. I've been sleeping not much. Hadn't had a lot of time to read. But what is the controversy about the Ryder Cup and paying to play for the Ryder Cup?
Yeah, but Patrick Cantley stated that you should be paid for that and all, and then players pushed back and said no, representing the USA is enough and all.
Yeah.
So hadn't that's still like up in the air and all. But I hope they don't go that route. I hope if they get paid, they get this money to go to charities or something. Because
look, I know money is makes the world go around, as they say.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's don't ruin one of the greatest sports events of all time by putting money on it. They get enough money with just their image, being there, the publicity they get for being on the team, the privilege of being on the team representing the United States. It doesn't surprise me Cantley came up with that. That's the goofiest guy.
Yeah.
He's a good player. He chokes a lot, but
let's pick some football.
Let's do it, man. Football.
I'm gonna give one soccer pick out. I'm gonna make sure I note this. This soccer game is Thursday.
Okay.
Fulham even. Lions completely even against BHA, Brighton Hove Albion. Albion, I believe is how you say that. Just like Fulham in that game. And now I wanted you to talk Packers and Lions. That's a Thursday night NFL game. Jake's going to be under the gun to turn this show around, but the Packers are 3.5-point underdogs at Detroit.
Look, I've been on the Packers here lately, and they have not disappointed. They've been playing great. I think that the Lions also, they've been great. We've been on them, but now when these two are meeting up, I'm going to ride the Packers. They're getting the points, plus 3.5. I like it, and I'm going with the Packers again and see if I can ride them out. Last year, I went against them a lot, and it burned me.
We're going to shift back to college now in the conference championship games. Let's begin the Big 12. Arizona State and Iowa State. Not a lot of people had Arizona State on the bingo card when the season
Mhm.
started to be playing this Big 12 championship game, but they are 2.5 point favorites against Iowa State. And if there's a hotter team in college football right now, I don't know who that would be. I believe you probably like the Sun Devils here.
I do like the Sun Devils. I think that they have finished so great, and the fact that they're, one, when you say, hey, we got the Big 12 championship and Arizona State is one of the teams you called out, that's awesome. I mean, we've had a lot of, I guess you want to call it, bad taste in our mouth about the new conference realignments and all that stuff. But it has turned out that these conference championships are full of teams that are new to the conference. And this is the first example of that with Arizona State coming in. And odds on favorite at -2.5. They stomped Arizona in the ground, in rivalry. That was just, I didn't expect that. I mean, I knew
I
they'd
didn't either.
win. I mean, wow.
I I thought Arizona might circle the wagons one time at the
Yeah,
end of the year. They've had a rough season, and I thought they might win or at least compete in a big game before their year was over. Boy, I was wrong about that.
that was
Um,
embarrassing. And the Scatabo, is that how you say his name anyway? Scatabo.
yes, you got that. Yep,
He's
running back
awesome, man.
is
He's doing a
yeah, he
great
is.
job. So I think I've had a little affection for the Arizona State when Georgia did a home with them back in the early 2000s, and won them both, by the way. But anyway, I think they're great. I'm pulling for them to win.
And just leave the subject just for a second. Amazon's first deliveries of Fallen Record Recover have hit this evening for people who Kevin White just sent me a text message of his arriving, and Tara did that earlier. And
Yeah,
those they were pre-ordered theirs, so that means like most people will be getting their books, tomorrow and all. So I just want to
yeah.
share that. It's kind of a cool thing. Kevin reaching out to us. He's part of the panel. He's 72 and 83. Danny's 75 and 80. If you just now join us, Danny Arp's our guest tonight. He's our TWT lead football expert, and he just picked the Arizona State Sun Devils to win the Big 12 championship. We'll move to the SEC, folks, and it's going to be no surprise because each week everybody virtually takes Georgia. Sometimes Stormy doesn't. Doesn't matter what the spread is these days. And Danny's taking the Georgia Bulldogs +2.5 against Texas. I'm concerned for Georgia in this game. This has a feel of that Alabama Georgia year of the SEC championship game and the national championship after we saw what Georgia did to Texas earlier this year. It reminds me of what Alabama did to Georgia in the SEC championship game. And then everybody but me said, wait a minute, Georgia's favored in the national championship game again by a couple of points and Bama just won. I'd be very cautious if I were people that didn't always work out. And that's why I picked Alabama to win the SEC that year and Georgia to win the national championship. And it worked out. Just because Georgia beat Texas earlier this year doesn't mean they're going to beat them in the SEC championship game, but they've got to find a way to match Georgia's physicality because Georgia was so dominant that night on both lines of scrimmage. I think Texas's defense is great, but I don't know if they'll be able to pass protect. And I'm big on Georgia's defensive line, and they did
yeah.
a great job in that game of using their numbers to their advantage and all. And people, might say, well, look at what Georgia Tech just did against Georgia as far as offensive production, and that's fair to say. But let's give, Georgia has one extra day, and let's give like Kirby Smart's defensive genius. We all know this, but Georgia, this one concerns me. But you do like the Bulldogs. Now I'll give you the opportunity to tell us why.
Well, number one, I have it on almost every show. I am a Georgia homer. It's like I told you, it's not fair that you put them on the pick list, because I'm going to pick them. I've lost big time as far as covering, but they win the game. And I'll tell you, here's my thoughts. It's very hard to beat a really good team twice. You're right. It was the same Georgia Alabama effect. Twice in one year is tough to do. Um, but a couple of things to think about. We've got them in the Benz. They've never played in Mercedes-Benz Stadium before. Not that they haven't played in some big venues, but that is, like a second home field for us. So I feel good about that. Carson Beck has really turned around big time in the last 3 games. It's been about a month since he's made any kind of post about his girlfriend, too, from Miami.
One of the Cavender girls.
Yeah. And ever since he stopped with all the, nonsense, he's like Douche LaRoe and Bull Durham, ever since he stopped messing around. The kid has gone 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and over 1,000 yards, man. And I think he's on a hot streak. He's getting hot at the right time. So not only do I think that our defense is in good shape, I do think our offense is going to be able to perform even better than they did in the first game we played. So I'm hoping, that we can. I think they're going to score. They're going to get their points. I hope they don't bring in the little Manning guy because the running quarterbacks kill us.
Yeah, you and I talked about that off the set, and I think Texas's best opportunity would be with Manning over
It
Quinn
would be.
Ewers. And all that.
We'll see what Steve Sark is all about. I mean, we know that Saban, who really was like a trainer for both of these coaches, he would make the switch on a quarterback in a heartbeat. And we'll see what happens. I hope they don't bring him in.
Let's go to the ACC championship and Clemson and SMU. It's my first selection. I'll go with the former. You went with the former Auburn assistant Kenny Dillingham's Arizona State select, and I'm going with the for my first selection. I'm going with the former Auburn offensive coach, offensive coordinator Brett Lashley. He's the head coach at SMU. SMU's favored by 2.5. You have a 5-star selection here. Who is it?
SMU minus 2.5.
Okay, so maybe it was Gus Malzahn. It wasn't his assistant coaches that were the problem when he was at Auburn, because both of these guys were offensive coordinators at Auburn, and they're doing quite well for themselves at Arizona State and at SMU.
Look, again, another example. You got Arizona State made it to the championship game. Texas has made it to the championship game. SMU has now made it to the championship game. Clemson got lucky, man. They don't deserve to be here. I mean, Dabo is up here talking about we're going to win this one and then win the last one and we're going to be the national champs. This guy is so delusional. You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of some of the old Tennessee teams that during the decade of dominance or whatever, they backed into more junk. And that's what Dabo's turning into, man. He's the Philip Fulmer of the ACC. SMU is doing a fantastic job. Kevin Jennings is doing a great job at quarterback for him, and I think he's about to put on a show against these guys. He's a great mobile quarterback. He's great at passing, so I'm going SMU. I don't even think it's close, man.
And I agree with you. That is your 5-star. I will say that Stormy's 5-star is Clemson plus 2.5, but both of you are 5-9 with 5 stars. So one of you's got to pick up a game on the other concerning 5 stars.
Yeah, so he went Clemson 5-star.
Yeah, he made Clemson his 5-star at plus 2.5. We'll run down everybody's picks shortly. I do want to mention in the next game, I gotta have a hard time saying this without Ohio State in this game, but the Big Ten championship game. Oregon is favored by 3.5 points over Penn State, and the entire panel has Oregon minus 3.5. I went opposite of the panel and I took the Nittany Lions plus 3.5. I can't stand either team. I especially cannot stand Penn State. And like most people on this panel, I don't have a whole lot of respect for Franklin, but here he is in the Big Ten championship game, so I tip my hat to him as far as that. Tell me the key there in that game as you see it for Oregon and Penn State, Danny.
So you can't stand Oregon either, as you were saying?
Tell me the key there for the Oregon Penn State
the
game.
Key for them. Yeah, I think the key for them is that their defense is going to be too dominant for Penn State. I mean, I think Dan Lanning is, I told you a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about that defense that he had for us in our first national championship run was just amazing. And I realized then this guy was a hot commodity. He's got them dialed in. And I don't think James Franklin can do it. They didn't do well. They didn't cover. If we're talking about just trying to cover, you got to. He didn't cover against Ohio State. He didn't cover against Illinois. Those are the only 2 ranked teams he's played all year. And I like Dan Lanning to go ahead and finish off what he started. I mean, 12-0 is a great year. I mean, how many people go undefeated in a year? And that's fantastic.
That's right. I'm going to run down everybody's picks right now. When we have time, we'll talk a little NFL once it's over with. But starting with myself, I'm 35-33 on the year, 7-7 with my 5 stars. I'm 12-5 opposite of all of that in soccer, and I've got that one play, Fulham, even. In the college football ranks, I've got two selections: SMU minus 2.5, and Penn State plus 3.5. My five-star will be the Atlanta Falcons plus 4.5. As I look, I'm the only person that did not go with the Minnesota Vikings, and Kevin's five-star is the Minnesota Vikings. Let's go ahead and run down Kevin's picks. He's 72 and 83. He's 5-9 with his five stars. He's got Arizona State minus 2.5, Georgia plus 2.5, Clemson plus 2.5, Oregon minus 3.5. In the Thursday night game, he's got the Detroit Lions minus 3.5. The five stars I mentioned is the Minnesota Vikings minus 4.5. He goes with the Raiders plus 7, the Bills minus 4.5, the Cardinals minus 2.5, and the Chiefs minus 4.5. We'll go to John's picks. John leads the panel. He's 76 and 79, but 5-9 with his five stars. Let's start with him on that Thursday night game. He's got the Detroit Lions minus 3.5 in that Thursday night game. He goes with college. He goes with Arizona State minus 2.5. He takes Georgia Bulldogs plus 2.5. He agrees with us with SMU minus 2.5. His five star is Oregon minus 3.5 against Penn State. In the NFL selections on Sunday, he's got the Vikings minus 4.5, Buccaneers minus 7, the Bills minus 4.5. The entire panel took the Bills. He's got the Seattle Seahawks plus 2.5 and the Chargers plus 4.5. He leads Stormy and Danny by a game. Stormy is 75 and 85-9 with the five stars. He begins his week on Thursday night with the Detroit Lions minus 3.5. He's got Iowa State plus 2.5, Georgia plus 2.5. We mentioned his five stars, Clemson plus 2.5. He has Oregon minus 3.5. The entire panel took Oregon minus 3.5. I went opposite of the panel with Penn State. His NFL selections on Sunday include the Minnesota Vikings minus 4.5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers minus 7, the Buffalo Bills minus 4.5, the Seattle Seahawks plus 2.5, and the Kansas City Chiefs minus 4.5. You've heard Danny's picks so far. It begins on Thursday night with the Packers plus 3.5. He was the only member of the panel to go with the Packers. He's got Arizona State minus 2.5, Georgia plus 2.5. His five stars, the SMU Mustangs, Southern Methodist minus 2.5. He's got Oregon minus 3.5. Now we're going to try to get to as many of his. We'll run down everybody's picks at the very end in case we do run out of time. We've got a little over 3 minutes left. The Falcons Vikings game, I went with the Falcons. That's my five star plus 4.5. It's Kevin's five star to take the Minnesota Vikings. The entire panel went opposite of me with the Vikings. Let me ask you this way, because you're on the Vikings. What do the Falcons have to do to go into Minnesota and get a victory?
Then you got to put Penix in at quarterback, man.
Mm.
I mean, I get it, but they can't keep going along with these interceptions, man, with Cousins. And I said it at the beginning of the year, which it burned me a lot on my picks because I really didn't think he had it in him. But I think they put Penix in, get a little more offensive production going, stop with the turnovers is number one way to lose a game. Then they can win the game. But I don't think they'll do it. I think they'll stay with Cousins, and I think you're going to have one or two turnovers because of it. And that's why I'm going with the Vikings.
They're now in a virtual tie with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Everybody took the Buccaneers minus 7 except Kevin with the Raiders plus 7. We'll just be pulling for the Raiders as fans of the Falcons. Let's skip an analysis on that, and we'll
Yep.
just mention that all four of you took the Buffalo Bills minus 4.5 at the Rams. Let's go to the Seahawks, where three of the four of you took the Seahawks plus 2.5. Only Kevin took the Cardinals minus 2.5. Talk to me about the Seattle Cardinals game.
Uh, I just think the Seahawks are going to be one of the teams that go deep into the play. I think they are a deep team. They're deeper than the Cardinals. I know they're going and playing them at their home field, but I just think they're in position to make a run, and they need this win. I think they're playing for something, and that's why I think they're going to take it.
One final game I want to ask you about. We got about a minute and a half here. The Chiefs are favored by 4.5 at home against the Chargers. Only John went with the Chargers. It seems like all every week the Chiefs are in trouble, but they pull out a victory, and that's been the case I think every game. But one, Chiefs Chargers have had a good fun series the last few years. This ought to be a really competitive football game.
Hey, look, I'm excited about it. I like the way the Chargers are playing. I think it's going to be a great game. But to your point, the Chiefs have not only done it this year, they've always been just an exciting come from behind team. I don't even know if they're going to have to come from behind on this, but if the Chargers come into play in the way they have been playing, it's going to be a very competitive game, and the Chiefs may have to make a comeback. But I think they get a lead early and they just hold it and cover this thing by about a touchdown.
All right, I got about a minute, a little bit less than a minute left. Final thoughts here before we wrap it up tonight.
I think it's going to be a great weekend of football. This season has been really fun. I know we got into it often. We didn't like all the NIL and the money, but it's been a good season, man. And some of these playoff games, that the way it shook out last night, if we get some of these home playoff games that they put up on the brackets last night, that's going to be amazing. I
Hmm.
mean, it's going to be some fun football to watch, and so for that, I'm thankful. I don't like the way the rankings turned out, but I am thankful that we do have this opportunity.
And Danny, we'll have you back to discuss some of the bowl games as we go in the college football playoffs, all the way to the. We'll continue doing the football panel, all the way up to the Super Bowl, but certainly during the college football playoffs as well. I really appreciate you joining me tonight, though.
Yep.
For Danny Arp in LaGrange, Georgia, Jake Barton's in Noonan, Georgia, I'm your host, Tony Jones. Been our pleasure to host this show tonight. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.